Welcome to the U.S. Open Health Desk, presented by Mount Sinai. I'm Mara Montalbano, and today I'm joined by Dr. Brian Iacoviello, PhD, an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the Mount Sinai Hospital. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, sure, Mara. Glad to be here.
So today, in this episode, we're going to be exploring some mental aids to help maximize your performance on the court. So Dr. Iacoviello, what are some good ways to help players build their confidence?
Confidence really comes from preparation and knowing what to expect more than anything else. So there are a couple things that players can be doing to enhance their confidence as they're preparing for a competition or a match. Things that will enhance their knowledge of what they're about to get into. This can include things like checking out the court ahead of time and the conditions, things like sun conditions, wind conditions. Is there water that's going to be provided on the court, or will they need to bring their own? Even things like checking out the court for potential distractors, and so having a sense of what you'll need to be mindful for to keep your focus during the match. All of these things can make you feel more prepared, and the more prepared you feel, the less uncertain you'll feel. The less uncertain you feel, the more confident you'll feel.
I heard a lot of players use the visualization techniques. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is and how it helps?
So visualization is essentially seeing something in your mind's eye before it happens. You can do this with anything, but it's particularly important with tennis. You can visualize the next point that you're planning. Where do you want to hit it? How do you want to hit it? Any other factors you want to be keeping in mind? And when you're visualizing, you want to be as detailed as possible. You want to really see what that shot is going to look like. And if you can even get yourself to the point where you can feel what it's going to look like to hit that shot, the more you can visualize and actually put yourself in that moment, the better your mind will then be able to kind of follow those directions, kind of like directions on a roadmap.
So sometimes when you're playing, things don't go the way you want it to go, and some players might lash out, get angry, but that doesn't really act as fuel for better play. So how can players really get their anger under control?
Right. So yeah, we've definitely all seen the hotheads on the court, right? The people who get really angry, maybe after they've played poorly, they might yell or abuse a racket. Right. Now, that anger, it's not going to improve your play much, and it's probably not going to make you enjoy playing anymore. So you're going to want to try and minimize the amount of anger that you experience and express on the court. There are a lot of ways to do this, but there's probably three main things to keep in mind at first. The first is to try and be objective, or try to be matter of fact in how you're thinking about your play. So in how you're describing or narrating your play to yourself, you want to avoid the subjective language, the things that are kind of emotionally laden. So statements to yourself like, that shot was terrible, or that was awful. That's not going to do much for you, and besides maybe make you frustrated or angry. A more objective or matter-of-fact way of thinking in these moments would be kind of like the radio announcer or narrator would describe the play, right? So you look at your shot and you maybe say something like, that forehand shot was long by 3 inches and wide by 2 inches. Having that kind of objective thinking is going to lead to less frustration and less anger than a more subjective kind of thought would. So try to be more objective, more matter of fact in how you're thinking about your play and narrating it back to yourself. The second key is going to be to have a between-point ritual, something that you are in the habit of doing between each point to get yourself focused on the present and detached from any of that anger or frustration that you might be holding on to from the last point. And lastly, the third thing to do might be to get into the habit of taking 3 deep breaths before you say anything after any one point. Get in the habit of taking those 3 deep breaths, maybe relaxing yourself, feeling a little less angry and frustrated before saying anything. So then you might be less prone to express some of that anger on the court. Those are 3 good ways to start.
And going back to preparation, how important is sleep to a player's mental state?
Sleep is huge. Sleep's huge for everything, and tennis is included in that. Generally when preparing for a match or a competition, you probably don't want to be changing a whole lot in the week beforehand. Things like the food that you're eating, warm-up routines, the shots that you're practicing, any other kinds of routines. You want as much routine or as much regularity as you can in the week before a match or a competition, and that's going to be true for sleep as well. The caveat to that, though, is that you might want to have a somewhat different sleep routine in the week leading up to a match, because you want to be sure that you're getting up and going to bed around the same time every day. If you're not used to playing on as many hours of sleep, or maybe you're waking up a few hours earlier than you normally would for a match, that can really affect your play. It can affect things like your emotional control, but also your concentration, your focus, ultimately your performance on the court. So if you get in the habit of waking up early, kind of anticipating that you might have an early game, an early match, get in the habit of waking up early every day in the week before a match or competition can really kind of give you a leg up when it comes to in terms to sleep.
Well, Dr. Iacoviello, thank you so much for all of that great advice.
You're welcome. Thanks.
And remember to check back at usopen.org throughout the tournament for more great information from the staff at Mount Sinai right here on the US Open Health Desk presented by Mount Sinai.